A quick warning before you start watching this video. You're about to watch a review in which I discuss what are, in my opinion, the worst characters in total drama. This video contains some major unpopular opinions and hot takes, and as a result, it might very well be that your favorite ends up as one of my least favorite characters. More than in any video I've done so far, I want to emphasize that these are simply my opinions, and that it is totally fine for you not to agree with anything I have to say. Also note that just because a character is in this bracket, that doesn't automatically mean that I hate them. This is seldom the case. If you do not agree with something in this video, please let me know in the comments down below. I love to have a friendly discussion with you about it. You have been warned. Now enjoy me bashing on your favorite characters. Hey everybody and welcome back to another bracket video. My name is Silly Billy, but you can call me Billy. Now, you might be wondering, Billy, we've done 3 of these videos so far, and I'm pretty sure there's not a 5th generation of characters you could rank. Unless we're gonna do the Total Drama people. But this time around, we're not gonna look at my favorite characters. Instead, we are going to look at my least favorite characters. I have combined every single bracket up until now, and I've taken all the characters that don't make it through the first round that they compete in. So if they lost the very first time they had to compete, they are now here. And that goes for most of these people, that would be the first round. But some of these people also got a free first round, but then immediately lost the second round, and those people are also here. Little issue is that there's 44 characters for who this rule applies, and I only have a bracket of 32, or I need to expand it to 64, in which case a lot of people would get a free first space. Now that last one doesn't seem really good, so I narrowed it down to 32 people. Basically, I just started removing the characters that got a very unlucky or unfair matchup in their first round, and because of that they were now here, instead of being actually unlikable or bad or mediocre characters. So for example, Lindsay of all people should actually have been on this list because she got a free first round and then lost to Harold, who won the bracket in total. So yeah, of course Lindsay's not going to be on this list. Lindsay's one of my favorite characters of all generations. She just had a very unlucky matchup. So Lindsay's off this list, and with Lindsay there are 11 characters that also didn't make this list, and I will put those on the screen right now. Yes, okay, so for the other 32 characters, they have all been put randomly in brackets again, and we are going to look at which of these characters is my least favorite. So, the longer they stay in the race, the worse it is for them. And this is gonna be an interesting one again, because we have matchups of all the 4 generations of characters together. But I think that's gonna be fun. Okay, so let's get right onto it. I actually learned that you can zoom these things in, so now the pictures shouldn't be as blurry as they were in the previous 3 rounds. Let's start off with Mickey versus Elodie, which I think is an interesting battle to begin with, because both of these people are very meh. However, I really did not like Mickey and Jay, and I really didn't care for Elodie. So for this first round, I'm going for Mickey. Next up, we have Bridget versus Eva. I think this is a pretty clear one, because Eva is by all means a worse character than Bridget. The only reason that Bridget is still on this list is because of the events of World Tour and the fact that she is suddenly cheating. This was something that bugged me the wrong way. But in any other way, Bridget is a fine character, and I really enjoyed her time on all the 3 seasons. And Eva's funny in the few scenes that she gets to be in, but if the show is not going to care for Eva, then I'm not going to care for Eva either. Next up, we have Mary versus Kelly, and I am actually gonna go with Mary. I know that a lot of people hate Kelly, but I think, and I said this in the previous bracket as well, I think that hate is undeserved, because Kelly is a great character. Kelly gets to put Taylor on her place. Kelly gets this nice little redemption arc where she gets to fend for herself a little bit, let Taylor not walk all over her, and yeah, I think Kelly's great. Meanwhile, Mary didn't really contribute a lot to the Redonkulous race, was eliminated very quickly. Same goes for Elodie. So yeah, she gets to continue. Then we have Sierra versus Sky, and this is a pretty clear one for me as well. This is Sky, because both of these characters have something very annoying, but Sierra also has something that makes her a great character. She is very strong. She has a great character arc throughout World Tour mostly, not really towards All-Stars. Sierra really needs Cody in order to be a good character, or at least that is the current state of things, because Sierra on her own without Cody was just Sierra with Cody, but then Cody was replaced by Cameron. But Sierra could have been a great character, and Sky is in every regard the lesser Zoe. I knew from the start that Sky was going to win this. I didn't really enjoy Sky's character. I think she is way too perfect for this show. I mentioned this in the second bracket as well, but Sky cannot make mistakes. And that's very annoying to watch. You don't want a character like this. So, no, the Sky continues. Next up, we have Miles versus Amy, and this one is also pretty obvious. You will see a pattern that the very mediocre characters, or the characters that I'm very indifferent about, are going to drop out in this round, and the people that I actually have an opinion about are continuing. And in this case, Amy continues in favor of Miles. Miles had some great scenes, especially with Laurie, who I absolutely adored. And then Amy could have been a great main antagonist of Pakatu Island, but was instead shafted after 3 episodes. This is a pretty easy one because Amy was just very poorly handled. Next up, we have Duncan versus Scarlett. Duncan is continuing, and a lot of you will probably think, why? Some people really like him. I'm not on that side, but I do think that he's a pretty fine character. However, Duncan also stands for something that I really can't get behind, and that is that the bully is seen as the victorer. I am mostly talking about Duncan in action. Duncan's character in action is reduced to being a bully. He gets presented as the guy that we want to root for, but Duncan does nothing else in action than pick on Harold and fight with Courtney. That's all Duncan does. I really can't get behind his victory in action. If Duncan would have never reappeared after Island, he wouldn't have been on this list. Funny as that may seem. But Duncan is severely wasted after Island. Next up, we have Lightning versus Ella. Both of these characters don't really deserve to be on this list. Lightning is a very funny character. Ella is a cute character with a great personality, but ultimately, I'm giving it to Lightning, so that means Ella continues, because Lightning does play an important and significant part in his season, and Ella unfortunately does not. And that really has to be taken into account, because I really enjoy Ella's character. Doesn't necessarily make the most of sense, but I did really enjoy her time on screen. But then she gets put in all these storylines that she really doesn't belong in, like her romance with Dave should have been scrapped. Her getting bullied by Sugar for no apparent reason is just something because they needed something to do for this character. Ella is super forgettable story-wise, but Ella as a character is great. And Lightning here is both really enjoyable as a character as well as in the context of the story. Then we have Tammy versus Spud. I am in doubt about this one, but I think it would be unfair for me to give it to anybody else but Tammy. Tammy has been in a total of 3 episodes, counting her small appearance at the end of the finale in the Redonkulous race. Tammy is made out as this character that everybody hates. That's so undeserving, because Tammy doesn't do anything that warrants hating on. Sure, you can decide to not like the character, but there's not really anything to hate with this character. You can be very indifferent about her, and I am very indifferent about Tammy. I don't really care for Tammy, but I don't hate her, because there's nothing to hate. And Spud is pretty funny. I had my issues with Spud, but ultimately Spud is a lot funnier than Tammy, because Spud gets a lot more spotlight. Spudlight. Oh, funny. There are some genuinely great scenes with Spud. I just think that the dog dynamic is not always handled best. But against Tammy, yeah, he easily wins. Next up, on the other side of the bracket, we find Jerry versus Taylor. Again, both of these characters are generally disliked by the community. I think I'm going with Taylor in this case, because I really enjoyed Jerry and Pete. And if you've seen my Redonkulous race review, then you know that I thought that these characters would be eliminated first, and then didn't. And that awoke a spark within me, in which I thought that these characters might suddenly just become very funny and get very far, only for them to get eliminated second, which was unfortunate. They got me good, but I really enjoyed Jerry and Pete for the 4 episodes that they were on the show. And Taylor, well, I don't really need to explain Taylor, I think. Leonard versus Anne Maria. I am going to be controversial here, and I am going with Anne Maria, because I really like Leonard, and I don't really see why people hate him so much. Again, one of these characters that gets a lot of hate, and with him I can see it a little bit more, because at least he is in 2 seasons, and in both seasons he's really the same character. Leonard clashes a lot with this show style, but then again, so do a lot of other characters. And I, for one, really enjoyed the obliviousness, the fact that he actually thinks that he's a magician. And if they ever do a Redonkulous race season 2, I hope from the bottom of my heart that Leonard and Tammy get to reappear and that they get a proper arc in which Leonard actually thinks that his magic is paying off and he gets extremely lucky up until the point that other contestants start to believe in it too. Like, imagine Jose. She is super superstitious. And imagine that Leonard casting a spell in front of her suddenly wins 3 episodes in a row. Like, imagine Jose's reaction. That would be hilarious. There's so much potential there. So, I really like Leonard for the few episodes that he got to be in. And Maria, not so much. I didn't really enjoy her gimmick with the hairspray. It didn't really contribute anything. It was just a gimmick for her to have. I didn't really enjoy Anne-Maria's sassiness. And then again, she tries to take Mike from Zoe. So all around, this character does not do a lot of things that I really enjoy. Even her elimination is pretty weak. Tyler versus Blaney. People will probably be wondering what Tyler is doing in this race. And he did get a pretty unfortunate matchup in the first round. But the reason that I did not exclude Tyler from this list is because Tyler in World Tour is severely overrated. You see, Tyler gets to be one of the main characters in World Tour, but in reality, Tyler is a minor side character in Island and a major side character in World Tour. But Tyler does not get a storyline. He gets to partake in other people's storylines, but only because they need a guy to do a certain thing. It's always Tyler. And I just hope that one day they decide, hey, this character is fun on his own. Let's actually give him a storyline. Something for him to do, not something where he happens to be around because other people need things to happen. No, something that Tyler can do because Tyler is a great character. And then Blaney, yeah, Blaney was a bit annoying in the few episodes that she gets to be in. I really started enjoying Blaney in the last few years, but I remember Blaney being my least favorite character of all. That certainly isn't the case anymore. Oh, that's kind of a spoiler, isn't it? But Blaney gets to be in the show for a couple of episodes. Feels like she should play a more important role, but then again, I'm glad that she doesn't, because it would be a bit of a repeat from Courtney in the previous season, where she also gets to join in halfway and throws up everything. Here, it would be a little bit the same. So I'm glad that she got eliminated pretty quickly on, but between these two, yeah, Blaney's definitely the worst character. We have Dave versus Sadie. Dave. Oh, that's a bit too far. But Dave, I am insultingly indifferent about Sadie. I think they should have done a lot more with Sadie after Katie's elimination, or they should have just eliminated her immediately upon the elimination of Katie. Either of these two would work, but not eliminates Katie and then eliminate a whole spree of people from the other team while Sadie gets to do basically nothing. It feels very obvious when the episode comes up where she is eliminated, because Courtney's like, oh, you're going down. And then she's like, oh, I never forget a promise. Oh, she's going down because suddenly I hate her. It was poorly handled, terrible. But now I just gave a whole speech about hating and how you should be careful with using the word. With that being said, I hate Dave. And we'll see him in the next round. Next up, we have Sugar versus Katie. Again, I am exorbitantly indifferent about Katie. Meanwhile, Sugar is a terrible villain, a terrible character overall, not enjoyable. Sugar should have been the episode 1 boot of this season. And I'm not saying that Beardo should have continued any further than he did, but Sugar doesn't work as a main character in the show. And Sugar especially doesn't work as the main antagonist of this season. And we have Rodney versus Pete. Pete, same situation as Jerry, and Rodney. I also think Rodney is pretty funny. This is kind of a coin flip, and then I think I'm going with Rodney. Maybe they should have eliminated him an episode earlier. And Jerry and Pete I really enjoyed, so Pete gets to continue. Then we have Trent versus Ezekiel. We're going for the least liked character, and I'm pretty indifferent about Ezekiel too. Didn't really enjoy the character, but I do enjoy the feral twist, unlike a lot of people. Trent is pretty cool in Island, but is very bad in action. Worst character in action by far. So I'm going to continue with Trent. And finally, for our round 1 battle, it is the two characters that basically don't talk. It's B and Beardo. Without speaking a word, B has a lot of personality. I still think he's one of the weaker characters of Revenge, but what do you want? He's a character that doesn't speak. But at the end of the day, he is still a pretty good character with a lot of personality, even though he doesn't say a singular word. So let's go for Beardo the Weirdo. Okay, 16 people are left. 8 need to go this round so that 8 can continue until the quarterfinals. We have Mickey versus Eva. I really didn't enjoy Mickey. I really enjoyed Eva for the few minutes that she gets to be on the show. Eva is comedic gold, and we get to see this mostly in the aftermath episodes and in the especially in the special episodes, the 27 episodes from Island and Action. Eva can be very funny and Mickey can be very annoying. Yeah, this is not a hard one. Then we have Mary versus Sky. I'm going with Sky. Very indifferent about Mary. Sky, I really didn't enjoy all that much, so she gets to continue and Mary gets to drop out here. Next up, we have Amy versus Duncan. Again, this is where the difficult part comes in because Island Duncan would wipe the floor with Amy. But Action Duncan is so bad and stands for such a bad message that I'm actually going to continue with Duncan, I believe. And something I should talk about as well, which I haven't done yet, is that I think this show relies too much on Duncan as a character, especially in World Tour, where there is multiple points where he should be eliminated, but doesn't, simply because they want him in the story longer.
As a consolation prize, the D-Man's now on your team, but someone else is gonna have to go. That's right, I'm ignoring the vote. As if I'm gonna send Duncan home when the fun's just getting started.
No, just no. Amy is a lot of things, but if there's one thing she isn't, then it is being relied on by the story. She gets eliminated way too quickly. Okay, then we have Ella versus Tammy. Still wildly indifferent about Tammy, but Ella's great, so Tammy gets to continue. Next up, we have Taylor versus Anne Maria. The battle of the sassy queens. I wasn't gonna say any other word. This one goes to Taylor, I think, because Taylor is pretty annoying. Let's face it, nobody here really likes Taylor. Anne Maria, I also didn't really enjoy, but Taylor is worse. Anne Maria still had some good qualities. Taylor really doesn't. Except that I think Taylor is funnier. Taylor has some great visual gags, such as the example where she's going to swim in Hawaii. That scene, I love that.
And my swim coach told Mom I was the best student he'd ever seen. Actually, sweetie, ever.
Next up, we have Blanley versus Dave. Dave. What is Dave in one word? Horrible. I think Dave is horrible. Blanley is fine. Not really. Blanley is annoying as well. But Blanley is short enough on this show for me not to care. Dave is... well, every second with Dave is a second too long. I really don't like Dave. Sugar versus Rodney is up next. And this one goes to Sugar because Rodney kind of unfortunately made it through this round because Pete was here too. I said it before, this is kind of a coin flip and Sugar is more annoying than anyone in this bracket. So Sugar continues. Next up we have Trent versus Beardo. I think this has to go to Beardo. This is actually quite a tough one because Trent in Action is really annoying, terribly derailed. But Trent in Island is pretty good, actually. Let's say that Trent is in 3/4 of Island and in 1/4 of Action. So that's 3/4 good, 1/4 bad. That makes about a score of 7. Beardo is pretty bad in all 1 episodes that he competes in. So that's a 100% bad score. So in that case, it would go to Beardo. We move on to round 3, which is Mickey versus Sky. This is a tough one. I think I was expecting that Sky would make it to the final 4, but against Mickey, I think I'm going with Mickey. I really didn't enjoy Mickey and Jay on this show. The reason for that is because these characters are designed to be likable in the fact that they are so pathetic, but all I see is that they're just really pathetic. I can appreciate that the show doesn't keep them around until the final 5, or even worse, until the finale. But in the time that they're there, it doesn't really feel like they know what to do with them anyway. There's this one episode, for example, in, I believe it's Brazil, where they form this alliance with Emma and Kitty. And that alliance falls dead in the exact same episode. So that's just one episode that you needed to fill with these characters that doesn't really contribute to anything. These guys, it's not enjoyable to watch these guys. The difference with these guys and Cameron, and the comparison with Cameron should be obvious. Both are bubble boys, and even in the design, they are the same character, because if you don't know, Mickey and Jay use the old design of Cameron. But the difference with Cameron and Mickey and Jay is that Cameron gets to grow beyond what makes him a weak character, and Mickey and Jay are just caught in that and don't really grow outside of it. Like, they themselves are pretty proud for being the 7th team to be eliminated, but I for one think they're just very lucky that other people are even worse than they are. These characters are so weak that it becomes pathetic, and not in the endearing kind of way, but in the, oh gosh, get these guys out of here. Wait. Next up, we have Duncan versus Tammy. Okay, if I am continuing Duncan in favor of Amy, then I am certainly continuing Duncan in favor of Tammy. Like I said, I really don't care about Tammy, and I do really have a strong opinion about Duncan. So Duncan continues in favor of Tammy. By this time, some of you will probably have unsubscribed to this channel. Please don't. That would be very sad. But there are a few of you who think, well, this guy's opinion is worthless. And sure, you can think that, but ultimately it is my opinion, and your opinion may vary differently. But yeah, I didn't like Duncan in action, and I didn't like Duncan in World Tour. But still, I will keep defending this, that if Duncan gets to be a finalist in the season where he is the bully, then I'm gonna keep continuing Duncan, because this is not something that I enjoyed. People know that I like Harold, but I'm not necessarily saying that him picking on Harold is not something that he should do. I'm just saying that if you decide to go with that storyline, that you don't then make Duncan the winner of that battle instead of Harold, right? If you want to have the underdog versus the bully, then no, the bully is not going to win. Bully shouldn't come out on top, and Duncan is a bully in action, and he does get on top, and I cannot get behind that message. So I'm moving on Duncan. Next up, we have Taylor versus Dave. Dave! For every scene that Dave is on the show, I didn't care at best, and I curled my nails into my own skin at worst. Dave is able to pull the blood from under my nails. I hate this character so much. So yeah, Dave moves on. Taylor still has some funny moments. I have never once laughed about Dave. I just cringed and I just cried. That's all I did. Sugar versus Beardo. That's going to be Sugar because... Oh, bye, Sugar. That's going to be Sugar because Beardo really isn't all that bad. He's pretty forgettable. Meanwhile, Sugar, I wish I could forget. But I can't. And so we make it to the final 4 of this bracket list. The 4 worst characters on my list. And I think this is pretty representative. I just had a quick look, and I think of the characters here, I think only Taylor might be coming close to fill up one of these spaces. But then again, she isn't all that bad either. I'm quite happy with these 4. Mickey, very pathetic. Duncan, bully that wins. Dave, also super pathetic, but also very annoying. And Sugar, plain annoying, disgusting, not really enjoyable. So these 4, and one of them is going to be my least favorite character of all times. Let's find out who it is. First up, we have Mickey versus Duncan. It keeps getting harder and harder to move Duncan forward, but I want to make a statement. And it feels dumb to do that with Duncan, but okay, let's recap Duncan. Duncan in Island is a great character. Fantastic. His edginess is not something that I can enjoy at all times, but Duncan's soft side is very well handled, properly explored. His dynamic with Courtney is great. Action Duncan is terrible, doesn't deserve the win there. I think if they would have wanted to give the win to Duncan based on Island, they should expand on Duncan as a character in Island and not strip him from what made him great in the first place, which is exactly what they do in Action. Then Duncan in World Tour is... I'm glad that he doesn't get to be in the first half of the season, but then gets to return about halfway through. And again, we are shifting the focus from characters that need it, like Noah and Tyler, to once again accommodate Duncan into the storyline, which I didn't enjoy. And then we have All Stars. Meanwhile, Mickey, very annoying for the time he gets to be on the show, but he only gets to be in for half a season. So in total, I think there's more times where I didn't like Duncan than I didn't like Mickey. And that means that I am continuing with Duncan until the final 2. And again, I'll state this once more. You will probably not agree with this, and that's fine. The entire idea of this video is to give my opinion. And opinions vary, and there's a lot of people that don't like the people that I like, and a lot of people that don't dislike the people that I do dislike, which is fine, and that's why I'm so curious to hear about your opinions as well. I'm not just asking that because it's good for the algorithm and because it delivers more views, because, well, I mean, that helps, but ultimately, I do this because it's fun, and I really want to hear your opinion as well. So, if you do not agree with Duncan being in this finale, please let me know why. And let me know as well who you think should have been in his place. Okay, thanks. Next up, Dave versus Sugar. Now we have the two worst characters of Pocket 2 Island, which I think is quite fitting that they should duke it out here. I think this one is going to Dave. Because Sugar, there are some scenes, I'm not saying there are many scenes, but there are some scenes in which Sugar is decently enjoyable. She can be funny. She can get a few giggles out of me. Dave not. Dave is, well, let's save the discussion of Dave for this round. Because now we meet the finale, Duncan versus Dave. Dave is a terrible role model. Both of these characters are terrible role models, actually. On the one hand, we have the bully that wins. Terrible role model, condones the fact that bullying is fine if it's against a dorky character. Duncan gets rewarded for being the bully. Dave, on the other hand, is a terrible role model when it comes to relationship. Dave gets rejected by Sky multiple times throughout the show, but doesn't take no for an answer because he thinks he's a great guy and Sky is just being difficult. But not only is he a terrible role model, Dave also cries constantly. He is always whining, not just about his what's the word when you hate dirty stuff. Let's just call it that. He hates dirty stuff. He's complaining a lot about that, and I know that the hating dirty stuff disease is a pretty serious thing for some people, but for Dave, it doesn't really feel like it, and I don't think that a person who really has the hating dirty stuff disease would compete in a show like Total Drama, because you know what you get yourself into. You've seen the previous 5 seasons, you know what you got yourself into, Dave. And then one final thing is that Dave decides to eliminate himself after getting rejected by Sky for the umpteenth time. This means that even his elimination is not something that satisfied me, because it is exactly what Dave wants. Overall, I'd say I really hate this character. If there is one character that I could label with the I hate you tag, then it would be Dave. So obviously, Dave beats out Duncan here. And I guess it's deserved because Duncan probably made it a lot further than he actually should have. Like, I really do not like Duncan, but I don't think he's that bad either. And I think he has some great moments, especially in Island. You slimy, stinky, terrible, terrible being. I do not like you. So that's going to be it, guys. My least favorite character of the show is Dave. Not really unexpected. I think this is a sentiment that is shared by a lot of people. But I also know that there's a couple of Dave defenders. And, well, I mean, all the power to you. I'm very curious about your opinion as well. Who would you think would have won in your bracket? Let me know in the comments down below. But thank you so much for watching. I know you're a fan of Total Drama by this point, so if you haven't seen my review series yet, you can check that out in the link down below. You can also check out my Minecraft series Tales of the Farlands if you happen to be a fan of Minecraft. And if you happen to be a fan of my content in general, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you again so much for watching. This has been Silly Billy, and remember that the bully should never win. Houdoe!